Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, interesting developments in Washington. We learned the other day that Vice President Kamala Harris had a telephone conversation with French President Emmanuel Macron. A few days earlier, she had also had a conversation with Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau. This is very unusual because protocol has it that presidents talk to figures of other countries who are on the same level as they are. So a president will talk to a president or the head of the government of a foreign country, just like foreign secretaries will talk to secretaries of state. So it was very unusual for this announcement that Kamala Harris was conducting negotiations on behalf of the United States with the French president and with the Canadian prime minister. And one is obviously drawn to the inevitable conclusion, something that we had speculated about before the election and after the election, that President Biden will not be with us for very long. And anybody who watched the CNN town hall yesterday with Anderson Cooper will have been convinced that this is not a person who is going to last 4 years as president.
Well, I mean, or if he does, I mean, he'll be he'll spend it in Camp David or something.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be drinking hot cocoa and watching the afternoon soaps. So it's now clear that a transition is taking place, and that in no time at all, the effective president, the de facto president, maybe soon also the de jure president, will be Kamala Harris, a person nobody likes, nobody wanted, who had to drop out of the presidential primaries before the first vote was cast because she was expecting an utter humiliation.
And I think I think she was still on the California ballot, and she got 6th place.
Yes, exactly. It was absolutely humiliating. This is, after all, she's the serving senator for California, and her own state rejected her. So it will be a bizarre phenomenon, but no more bizarre than some of the things that were uttered yesterday by President Biden as he rambled on about the threat of white supremacy and was suggesting that the military, of whom he is the commander-in-chief, is riddled with white supremacy. So you would have to wonder what the military that is supposed to obey his commands, what they feel about a commander-in-chief who has such a low opinion of them. So it's a very unusual time. Peter, what's your take?
Well, there's a number of ways you can look at this. On the one hand, it's prudent, okay? Because the town hall is the evidence here. Here's a man that is struggling. The synapses are not connecting, okay? And this is not, I'm not trying to be like Sean Hannity to make fun of it all the time. It's not funny, okay? It's really sad to watch, okay? So on the one hand, the strategy could be, safe hands are here. The ship of state is steady. Kamala Harris is stepping up when necessary. I mean, this can be kind of reasonable. But then again, from another point of view is that, well, we're glad that Joe performed that way during the town hall because we're setting into motion what we want to do. Unelected officials, I mean, obviously Kamala Harris was elected on that ticket, but I mean, all the other cronies in the orbit and calling these shots here. So it is kind of strange. And also it does for the world, outside world looking in, is that who's calling the shots here? You know, should we call Joe, or do we try to get Kamala Harris on the line? I mean, who's the decision maker? That is very dangerous. I mean, you know, you and I one of the things I do every single day, George, is just go through all of the headlines on antiwar.com, and they're frightful right now. I mean, really, the US is really aggressively on the move, but you wouldn't know that from cable TV, even Fox. Okay, so a lot of things are happening. So you know, it also, it's kind of creating a kind of a fait accompli, a default, you know, is that, you know, that Joe is there. You know, he's duly elected, and he took the oath of office, and we respect the office. But you know, Joe is kind of, well, he's kind of slowing down a little bit, a little fading out, and but you know, everything is in safe hands here. Which, you know, like you just pointed out in your first comment, is that, you know, Kamala Harris is intensely unpopular within the Republican Party, and she's not she's not imaginative at all. I've noticed that she's got the cackling a little bit under control.
Really,
And haven't you noticed? I mean, maybe this is pure coincidence.
I'll take your word for it.
Maybe this is pure coincidence, but did you notice that Disney, on the Disney Channel, is running this cartoon about her? And then all of these glowing, you know, like Vanity Fair and People magazines, you know, there's apparently those publications still exist, but they write these glowing reviews of her. And remarkably, or maybe unremarkably, like she is unremarkable, it's never about policy. It's about her background. She grew up in a very privileged environment. I don't know, why should you, you know, applaud that? I mean, she's part of this professional managerial class like the rest of them, okay? She has darker skin. She has, her parents come from different parts of the world. I thought we had gotten into this kind of post-racial age with Obama, but apparently not. Now, white supremacy is rampant. It's everywhere. You know, it's very interesting, the kind of soft power messaging they're pushing around the vice president. And God forbid anyone ever say something critical about her. You know, there's the Harris police out there monitoring everything.
Yeah, no, there's no question. Of course, her father was a professor. So, you know, the whole idea that she's, a creature of the streets, that she grew up in the hood, is as laughable.
From Canada.
Yeah, that the story that AOC kind of grew up in the hood. You know, she lived in Westchester. So yeah, but everybody tries to market themselves as well, I'm a street person. You know, I was, this is, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. No, absolutely not in her case. But it is a sort of an amazing thing. I mean, she has no knowledge of foreign policy. She has never been interested in foreign policy. It's never been her thing. She's been the Attorney General and so on. And that is why it is so remarkable for her to be talking to Macron. And you have to wonder, what does Macron think of talking to somebody who has no idea about anything? I mean, if he was to raise any issue about US-EU relations or, EU-Russia relations, she would have no idea.
She only knows, you know what she knows about France is the French laundry. That's it.
Yes, exactly.
She's into the French laundry. It's kind of like, who was it? Nikki Haley. Yeah, I mean, her knowledge of foreign affairs is going into the International House of Pancakes.
That's
okay.
it. That's exactly right. Yes. But that's a very good example. Somebody whose calling card was that she's of Indian ancestry. And apparently that's a qualification to be the US permanent representative at the United Nations. And indeed, she didn't see her job as anything other than being a shill for Israel. I mean, apparently that's your job description. What do you do as US permanent representative? You shill for Israel. But again, that's an interesting issue, how people are being thrust into these kinds of positions in foreign affairs with zero knowledge of it. And in the meantime, as you point out, we have the United States moving in quite heavily in Syria, and therefore a very strong likelihood of some kind of a very unpleasant confrontation with Russia on the cards. Afghanistan, the United States is making quite clear that it has no intention of withdrawing, no intention of adhering to the agreement that was signed by the Trump administration and the Taliban, and that the United States has no intention of returning to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, having decided that the violator of the JCPOA was Iran, and that Iran has to clean up its violations before it returns to the JCPOA. So this is what the US is doing, and Kamala Harris doesn't seem to help.
And let's also throw in, again, it's not reported, is that their Iran-backed militias in Iraq that are rising their profile, and the U.S. is threatening to retaliate. So there's a lot boiling, okay? Obviously, you know, they're more concerned with Kamala Harris's choice of shoes, yes. Okay? Not the fact that she may be running, at least as a figurehead at this point in time, American foreign policy that is a stridently aggressive right now, okay? Right. It's really remarkable. You know, it was going to be very, very different than Trump. Well, in the sense that, you know, Trump didn't look for trouble. You got to give him that. That's right. Absolutely true, with the exception of his obsession, which is part of the American political class's DNA when it comes to Iran. But other than that, he let things at least simmer or try to clamp down. We see the complete reversal here. So Kamala Harris is turning into a neocon. She may not know it, but she's being tailored in that direction. So but this is something that you and I talked about months and months ago, that the transition could start. And I think this is one thing telling the media, and that's kind of a soft pedal way, you know, she's just checking in with people like that. I think that's very interesting. Add on to every single public appearance that Joe Biden is seen at and reported on. It's really, really pathetic. I mean, even, you know, you could see the red faces over at CNN and MSNBC. They won't say anything about it, but everyone's like, whoa, okay. And so this could be a trend. So what we're week 3 or something like that, week 4. Right.
Well, exactly. But that's, of course, a very interesting phenomenon, because, of course, there was no way, the Democrats decided at some point last year that there was no way that any of the candidates could defeat Donald Trump, with the exception of Biden. And something or other happened, something very untoward happened in South Carolina and on Super Tuesday, because it was just the results were bizarre. They had no connection with anything that had happened before. And lo and behold, Biden was declared the winner. Everybody dropped out on the same day, and he was
coronated.
Exactly. So they kind of then thought, okay, this is the guy who's going to be able to defeat Trump. And then, you know, we now know from Time Magazine that long article what exactly happened in this election. And now, of course, this is what America is going to be stuck with. You know, if you actually pull off, I think, some kind of some nefarious way of winning an election, and you're going to be stuck with somebody nobody wants and whose competence is highly questionable.
And see, there is a law of unintended consequences in play here. You heard it here first. If, as we see, the media pumping up Harris with her credentials, you know, she talked to the French president. Now she's a foreign policy expert. Okay. But I mean, with the impeachment saga over, you know, and the Republican Party is trying to find its bearings, if the Democrats and the liberal media are going to slowly but surely throw their lot in behind Kamala Harris, Donald Trump has his target. He has a target.
Right.
And I don't think, you know, it's taking on Kamala Harris is going to be much. It's not heavy lifting. Let's put it that way.
Right. Well, that's why I think that the Democrats are going to be pushing very hard for their HR1, their bill HR1. In other words, how to change the electoral system to make it all mail-in voting all the time. In other words, everything that was terrible in the last election, let's make it a permanent feature of all elections, not to mention quick path to citizenship for everyone living illegally in the United States.
Except for when Bezos's union workers want to have an election, except for the recall against Newsom. There are plenty of exceptions here, and it always has to do with people that they're protecting. Okay.
Yeah, we're just making sure it's only in the presidential election that this is going to apply. No, I think that's right. I mean, I think they know that this is pretty much the only way that they can retain power. But at the same time, you have to then wonder if you have somebody like Kamala Harris, who has zero knowledge of foreign affairs beyond the usual cliches, and then you have a very unpleasant confrontation with Russia in Syria, say, quite likely, then we're in a very dangerous situation. And not that Biden is necessarily was going to be competent, but when you have somebody who really doesn't know anything about anything, and you ratchet up the tension, then we're in a serious situation, and you can see that the Russians are weighing this up, and I will take due cognizance of what's happening now. And I would have thought, if I were the Russian leaders, I would try to wrap things up in Syria pretty quickly, because the Americans are looking for trouble, and there is serious instability ahead in Washington.
Yeah, and the sad fact of the matter is that it'll be like someone like Jake Sullivan or Anthony Blinken that will be calling the shots, because I guess in her defense, I mean, she's going to say, I don't know what to do. What should I do? And then we have these unelected officials controlling American foreign policy again, which is I think is very malignant and obviously at odds with public opinion on these things. I mean, public opinion clearly states that they do not support these never-ending wars. Okay, and now we may have an acting president, not in name but in reality, is that a complete novice there. So and you're right, everyone's going to be watching this, because CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times, they're just going to keep, pouring on the bootlicking, charade of how wonderful she is, except for we have no idea what she thinks about anything.
Right. No, I don't think she does. I think she's, like many politicians in the United States, extremely ambitious. Has always known whom to glad hand, which lobbyists to suck up to, who were the powerful figures that you have to get in with, and hence her meteoric rise within the California political establishment, and embraced by Obama. But other than that, there's nothing to her. I mean, just yet another extraordinarily ambitious person, much like Hillary Clinton. So if we get into this confrontation, and I think that it's heading that way, because I think, and we've talked about this in past podcasts, which is the Russians are in no mood to be pushed around. They're just not going to they're not going to have Americans now moving in Syria, relaunching their regime change war. Again, helping ISIS to rise in Syria. In other words, undo all of the work that they've done since 2015. The Russians are just not in the mood to put up with it. Then I think, we're moving into a very dangerous territory.
The interesting thing is to close out is that Joe Biden was the most amazing, incredible, accidental Democratic nominee for president, and ergo the accidental president, the 46th president. But I mean, just think about this. Kamala Harris might even top that.
No,
Okay.
I think that's right. Exactly. Yeah, very accidental. And now somebody really accidental. Because remember, not only was she unpopular with the public, she really turned on. I mean, this is within the Democratic Party. Leave aside everything else. You know, again, there's a parallel with Hillary Clinton. I mean, she was hated within her own party, let alone among Republicans. So you have that. And, you know, she's somebody who really has no knowledge of anything. So she's kind of moved into this sphere without any knowledge of anything, without any ideas about anything. I mean, Trump was also, okay, you know, he was in real estate and whatever. But first of all, he was a known quantity. Everyone knew who Donald Trump was. But also he had some definite ideas, what he really wanted to focus on, like trade and China. That was his goal, and has been for many years. I mean, not just
decades. Decades,
exactly. You know, you look at an interview Trump gave sometime in the early 90s, and he's talking about trade. Yeah. I mean, that's something that has been an obsession of his. There's nothing like that with Harris.
Yeah, well, we've mentioned it once, and we'll mention it now. Just like at the last scene of the candidate, you know, he wasn't supposed to win. He won, and he asked his advisor, "What do we do now?"
What do we do now? That's, yeah, one of the great last lines in all movies. What do we do now? All right, Peter. We will be, of course, watching the rise of President Harris with our customary laser-like focus. And we are on Rumble. Please look us up on Rumble. And if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.